Well, my battle with cancer begins. This is part one. It's October 19th, 2024. I was diagnosed on the 16th of September with bladder cancer. It was quite a shock. I have what is known as T1, where the tumor invades the connective tissue. This is considered non-muscle invasive, as the cancer has not yet worked its way into the muscle. Over here on this side, you have muscle invasive bladder cancer, where the tumors have worked their way into the muscle. That's really bad. This is awful on this side, and this side is really, really bad. All right. This is part one. Part one, I'm going to bring you up to date on where I'm at currently. And then part two will be a prequel on what led up to all this. So, I think it was September the 3rd, I had a sonogram. And a kidney ultrasound showed no problems with my kidneys, but I had a possible mass in the bladder. And it was a 2.6 centimeter mass in the bladder. Well, 95% of all masses in the bladder are malignant. So your odds are pretty good it's cancer. Now I want to tell you straight up where bladder cancer comes from. About 70 to 80% of all bladder cancers come from smoking. I have never smoked a cigarette in my life or been around anybody that does. All right, so on the 16th of September, I went and had the scope, where they run the scope through your penis, past your prostate, and into the bladder, so that the doctor can see it. Now I'm going to show you my tumor. It's frightening to look at, not because it was inside me, but just it's frightening, period. It's not something I'm ever going to be able to unsee. Let's see here, let's get this zoomed in. It's this big yellow thing right here. Right wall tumor. Look at this big yellow thing, and then imagine chunks and bits and pieces of it coming off and coming out in my urine. At first I thought I was passing kidney stones, but nope. I was straining my urine, and there it is. This chunk here was so big, I had to pull it out of the end of my penis to get it out. So, 4 days later, I went in to have what's known as a transurethral resection of a bladder tumor. That's where they go in and try to cut most of it out. This is how that's done. So you can see the penis here, and the scope goes in. This is done while you're under general anesthesia, you're asleep. The TV camera they do live. So they go in, and then there's this hot wire on the end of the tool that cuts and burns and cauterizes all at the same time. Now this is pretty simple drawing, because I don't really know how they would reach around up here and get to these areas, but that's basically how it's done while you're asleep. So let me back up to the camera inspection. So what they do here is they take a syringe without a needle on it, and it's full of lidocaine, and they pump it down into your penis. It hurts and burns when it goes in. And then that numbs everything, and then they run the scope in. And this is done with you awake, and you're watching the TV. You're seeing all this live. And although it doesn't really hurt, it is uncomfortable. I wanted to point that out. This is done with you awake, and this is done with you asleep. Once they do all this, they put you into a catheter. This is called a Foley catheter. All right, this is on my left leg. Look at the size of this tube coming out of my penis. I would have never thought that that small hole could accommodate a tube that big. But what happens here is there's actually two tubes inside here. This is a port where they pump water in, and it goes into the catheter up in the bladder to a balloon, and it inflates a balloon to keep it from pulling out. And then it drains out this way into a bag. And this is the big bag hanging on the side of my bed. They make a smaller bag you can wear strapped to your leg if you want to go out, but I stayed home all 6 days. I cannot tell you how painful that was with this big tube coming out of the penis. That hurt beyond belief. I couldn't have gone another day, I don't think. So after I got the catheter out, it hurt and burned to pee really, really bad for about 3.5 weeks. Oh my God, it was awful. Until it finally obeyed and got better. So, they can't get it all out. But they went in there, they call it scraping. So he went in there and he scraped as much as he could and got it all cleaned out. Now I can pee normal. I'm not peeing blood. It don't hurt and burn to pee. Sexual function is great. But I still have a tumor inside me. And it's going to have to be treated. And let me tell you how they want to treat bladder cancers. The doctors want to treat all of them. Even the most mildest to the most severe. Go back and look at this again. They want to treat it by removing the bladder, the prostate, and the lymph nodes. The two tubes coming from the two kidneys will go to a plug, a port on your belly, and drains into a plastic bag. The thought of doing that is horrifying to me. And I just couldn't do it. So I'm currently in a holding pattern waiting to get onto radiation and chemotherapy treatment. Radiation treatment will be 35 days, 5 days a week for 7 weeks. The chemotherapy will be 5 days on, 2 or 3 weeks off, then back 5 days on or something. I don't remember exactly. He showed me a sample schedule. And that's not going to happen until the doctor does a second, what they call TURBT. Because if you saw the picture of how bad my tumor was, it was a lot of work scraping and burning all that out of there. They're going to have to go back in and do a second TURBT. The same surgery a second time. This is not unusual. It ain't that he didn't do a good job the first time around. That's just how it goes. And then I'll have to wait 4 weeks for my bladder to heal again, and I'll be back on that stupid catheter for another 6 days. And then after that, after waiting 4 weeks, I'll start radiation and chemo. That'll start sometime in late November, most likely. In the meantime, I'm doing great. Feel great. Everything's working. And I'm not going to let them gut me like a fish and take out all my body parts. The reason they want to do that is because that is an absolute certainty. I did have a full CT body scan last Saturday. They do those 7 days a week at the hospital because there's so many people needing them. And that turned out to be negative, so the cancer is not yet spread. So I'm about to go through 2 months of hell with radiation and chemo. And that ain't going to start for at least another 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, if you smoke, you need to stop. You do not want this. This is the worst most expensive kind of cancer. I do not smoke. I never smoked. But if you do, you need to stop. I promise you, you don't want what I've got. That being said, I'm going to film part 2, which is going to be the prequel that leads up to all this. And then I'm going to continue filming going forth as I go through the treatments. I was told I could take my phone into the radiation room and the chemo room. When you do the chemo, they're going to put a port in my chest where they will inject the chemo. That way they don't have to stick a needle in my vein every time I go in. They're going to have one port already placed into a vein in my chest. This is the most expensive form of cancer, but I've got good insurance. And, well, I look forward to making some new AR-15 tech tip videos sometime in the future. But this is where I am currently. All right.